Right. So there's an interesting article that came out last week, and it was more of an editorial perspective from an MIT robotics professor, Rodney Brooks, probably best known for co-founding iRobot. Obviously, also he also ran the MIT AI laboratory, CSAIL. So obviously a big wig in robotics and AI. And he gave a good warning in TechCrunch that AI is still somewhat overrated in terms of what we expect it to do. And part of it is that, frankly, this current generation of AI, this generative AI, is very good at being confident and making us think that it thinks like us. And I think it's good to have that warning from somebody who's in the know to remind us that although it is these things are answering in a way that we find very persuasive and personalized, it doesn't mean that the robot or the AI itself actually feels that this is a natural way of thinking.
Yeah, well, first of all, slackers like this that are so much underachievers really, annoy me. My God, these people are so smart. I can't even contemplate how they do all these things. Anyway, yeah, you know what? I mean, we've been saying this for a while, but I do love that somebody has this sort of credibility and stature in the industry is talking, brass tacks and reality about it. And look at his message. I think in the note you sent to me when you sent this article was that this was common sense, and it is. It's common sense. His message was use the right tool for the right job.
Mhm.
Gen AI is not the right tool. LLMs are not the right tool for everything. We've almost stopped talking about the fact that when the world now talks about AI, it has become synonymous with Gen AI, and there's a little diagram going around LinkedIn right now that shows sort of its place in the whole AI ecosystem, and it's just one little sliver, right? There's all these components, and there's an entire branch. It's all about predictive analytics or predictive AI. It's this idea of using the data to predict what's going to happen. And it has nothing to do with this idea of generative or language. It's about using this data. And we that is in many ways much more advanced, or at least much more, we've been leveraging those sort of machine learning models for a much longer period of time. And that's part of what he's talking about. Like in a warehouse situation where I've got a data stream, I don't have all these variables, I can control the environment more, then it is not the most effective tool to use. And I think that as we're talking about this idea of agentic AI, or we're increasingly that we're going to talk a minute about this idea of mixture of agents. What we're going to see is the blending, right? That the solutions, the enterprises that win, are going to be those that don't get swept up in the hype, as we've seen some companies start to go to press with, right? And instead are saying, how can I take all of these tools? And I now went from having 10 tools to 1,000 tools, but how do I take them and assemble them in such a way that I can solve specific problems in the right way? And I appreciate companies like Zoho. I think are taking a slower, more methodical approach to that, and I think that those are going to be the right combinations where we're bringing together the right pieces for fit for purpose and fit for use. Right? These are the ITIL terms, but I think that that's going to really be the thing that drives it. And so I appreciate this article that it was just sort of calling a spade a spade.
Yeah, one of the things I liked most was his comparison at the end around the iPod memory and saying for a while we saw iPod memory double every year from 10 gigs to 20 gigs to 40 gigs. And based on Moore's law and the size of storage and all these other things, you could have expected that to double on forever. And in theory, we would have these petabyte iPods that are coming out in the near future. But the reality is, there's only a certain number of songs that we actually need on an iPod or a phone, whatever you want to call it. No matter how much you might love music, you just don't need more than 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 songs. You don't need that next order of magnitude of 100,000 songs or a million songs. Or if you do, it's okay to access it off of the cloud or Spotify or other streaming services or what have you. That's what we ended up finding out, that there are limits to human comprehension and the human ability to actually digest anything. And that's probably going to hold true to some extent with everything we're doing with AI as well. There's only so fast that we can think, and so much that we can both ask and understand at one time.
Yeah, no, I think there are lots of challenges. I also think, what I took from that part of the article was that Moore's law has conditioned us to think that we'll always see this sort of exponential leap in capabilities. But AI is a different animal, right? In part because we don't fully even understand how the darn thing works in some
Mhm.
ways. And so there is a limit to the ability to sort of keep those exponential gains. And we've heard this from others in the industry, that we need to be continuing to explore other approaches, both within the general transformer sort of approach to this, as well as just entirely other elements of it altogether. And I think that is going to be the critical message. And as we've talked about, if you're an enterprise IT leader, you need to keep your options open. Don't get sort of sucked up into this. And I'm not saying don't experiment and don't invest, but just don't get all your eggs in one basket that you have to, talk about technical debt. The worst technical debt is one that you get everything invested here and then, next year something else comes out that completely changes the game and you have to try to undo all of that. So you need to have that sort of architectural flexibility.